I think he was a very curious person, very interested in many aspects, like from physics, cosmology, numerology, but also ancient philosophies.
While he painted, I would read to him until once he got this book on quantum physics, and I didn't know what those little markies were, and I said, "No can do."
Series 10 is the most extreme, meticulous study of the color gray. We calculate that he did approximately 12,000 color grays for Series 10. He only worked with 3 colors: titanium white, black ivory, and raw amber. And he will mix those colors, and he will measure them and weigh them and study the viscosity of each one of these colors to mix them together and create the color gray.
So he would weigh the paint and then plunk it down in front of me, and then I would take it on my, this thing actually, and mix the paint, and then carefully pour the paint into a pot, and then discard the things, and cap it. Then it had to be weighed, which he would do, and the weight was put on the top. And also then he'd write the set that he was working on, set 80-25 or whatever. And then they would have 1 through 29. And these would be the lines of the paint.
Why 3 colors? This is something I think is a very interesting question. Like, why not just black and white? Normally we think about gray as just black and white. But actually he experimented on several other colors. The third color that he will use, sometimes he will use sienna, burnt sienna, and other colors, and to find actually the neutral gray that he was looking, the gray that allows him to study all these gradations. He will mix those colors, he will measure with obsessiveness. For example, he will measure with a very precise scale with 6 numbers after the decimal comma. He will calculate the percentage of white, the percentage of black, the percentage of raw sienna in each one of the lines that compose the gradation. Every painting is structured in 29 lines. Each line is composed with these 3 colors that smoothly change and created through a composition that goes lighter to darker. And each one of these bands or lines that he called has these 3 colors, that each one of them has their independent curve. How they diminish or how they increase, each one is different, so they construct this gradation in a very complex system. This connects actually with the title of the exhibition, Endless Limits. I think the idea of putting very strict parameters allows him to go to an infinite series of variations. Like thinking about when you limit yourself in certain things, you can go deeper in the research.
He was right-handed, so he'd start from the left side of the canvas, paint the side, and he had sidebars with a string stretch taut across, and then he'd come down 4 lines worth, and then he'd sit in his chair and it would dry.
James' work is not about the color gray at all. It's about finding a neutral hue that transfers a sense of harmony and is a vehicle to communicate light and space. I often like to say that his work is an ode to in-betweenness and non-polarization, and that is actually what gray allows him to do. We have many objects here at the foundation that are part of our archival materials and ephemera, that they are tons of rocks, different types of stones, that there are different shades of gray, and also feathers. He will also collect small pieces of silver or metals that also there were different gradations of gray. He will photograph the floors of the streets of New York or London or Paris, and he was very much interested in this, how the colors of the light of the different places. This is a funny story that I think it reflects a lot how he was. It's like he bought a suit that it was a gray suit in London, and when he came back to New York, he thought that it was green. But because that is something that we don't think often, that how the light in different places affects how we see things. So as a fabric that in London was definitely gray. Here he saw it green. When somebody listened to that or thinks that, oh, he was obsessed with the color gray, it's not about really the color gray. It's about the possibilities of the color gray.
Montauk, when it was foggy, we'd walk up to the cemetery, and that's a beautiful place.
The connection of James to Long Island. You know, he had a house there, he worked there, he was informed by the nature and the lights in that region. So that is first foremost the most important, the connection with the local community and the region and the natural environment where he worked. I think is essential to his work, even if it's not figurative, it's not painting of landscape. It is very much connected to what he was looking at, what he was seeing during his time in Montauk, at his house in Montauk.
We would go out there and not stay in East Hampton, where his mother had had the beach house. We'd go out farther, and there's a little one that has windmills on it. It's a little Dutch place and stuff like that. And lots of times we stayed at Ron's cabins. Maybe we should get a place, then we wouldn't have to, whatever, leave stuff and things. So that's how it started.
That is the region that actually informs a lot his work. Obviously, his time in San Juan Island in Washington State, that is where the gray comes to life. I think that is the looking at the fog and the sky and the sea. You can see that in the Points on Field series, that they are in the early, like in the 80s. But then he goes to this more minimalist, like looking for elimination of elements, reductionist of certain elements, and that he achieves in this time period that he's between New York and Montauk. This is one of the most important things about exhibiting at the Parrish, because the Parrish has a good component of natural light in the exhibition rooms, and this is what actually one of the reasons that we love the idea to exhibit at the Parrish. The works are always installed considering that the light comes from the window, and so, for example, we will always have the pieces that they are lighter closer to the window and the darker far away from the source of light. The other thing is like the structure, the architecture of the museum itself is in perfect synchrony with what James' spaces were about. It has a lot of similarities: the concrete floors, the white walls, the geometric lines of the building are very much into synergy with James' work. All his life, he only wanted to show his last projects, his last work. He was always looking forward. The fact that he's no longer with us allows us also to examine his life and his process.
He, I think, in his mind, aspired more to the abstract and had looked at, like I say, trips to the East Coast to cooning a lot, and drank some scotch and became a very swashbuckling abstract painter.
I think it's very courageous from the Parrish team to choose a retrospective on an artist that is completely unknown. Sometimes other institutions would have presented first the work and somebody else would have the retrospective. I think it's very important, and we are very grateful for that. It could give the audience much more understanding, and not only on James' work, but also how abstract expressionists or minimalist artists or abstract painters actually work and where they come from.